Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jaden and I'm going to be telling you about all 19 books I read in February, starting off with the Pirate Devlin. I rated this one 2 stars, and this is the tale of Patrick Devlin and how he became a feared pirate known around the world in 1717. So this is a historical fiction book, and the book was a slog to get through for me. It took forever to finish. I just couldn't get into the writing of the book. Plus, there were too many characters to keep track of, and because of that, at times I just kind of forgot who characters were, or I just kind of mushed them together, so it was hard to keep track of who was who. So that was awful because then later, when the book changes characters' perspective multiple times throughout a chapter, which I hate, it was hard to remember who was who and who author was trying to talk about. There were some graphic deaths, which I did like. So I'm like, ooh, sometimes with pirate stories we don't get like the violent graphicsy, the graphicness of it. And I liked how we got that in this book. Like, it started off kind of in the beginning, kind of graphic, so I really liked that because I wasn't expecting it. It had some really beautiful lines. Just in how things were described or talked about, those are really beautiful. Other than that, I really did not like the book. It was just a struggle to get through. Plus, there were like little twists that made me just meh, made me feel meh. And when they happened, I just had already stopped caring, so it didn't really impact me. The second book I read was The Locked Door, and I rated this one 4 stars. So, Nora is a surgeon escaping her father's murderous past, but when a couple of her patients die under circumstances similar to how her father killed his victims, she has to figure out who is doing this. So I finished in a few hours, which I usually do with a Freedom McFadden book. Book had been on my TBR for a while and was worth the wait. The twist itself was meh, but I really enjoyed the book all the same, which I usually do with Freedom McFadden books. There was no dual perspective with this book. It was just one perspective throughout the entire book, which usually there's like one or two perspectives, so usually two. So it was interesting just having the one in this one. Short chapters and fun to read kept me guessing, and I really enjoyed the characters, and the story and the plot was very interesting and intriguing. The third book I read was Game Changer, and I rated this one 4.75 stars. So after getting a smoothie at Kip's work, Scott Hunter's hockey luck starts to change, along with how he feels about Kip. So this is the first book in the Game Changer series by Rachel Reed. I read the second one, Heated Rivalry, last month. So if you want to see how I felt about that one, just check out last month's video. This book was so freaking cute. I loved Scott and Kip so much. I smiled and laughed to myself so many times while reading this because they were so cute. This is also my copy, so I was able to underline and comment throughout my reading, which I loved. A lot of commentary as well. There were sex scenes in this book were just so freaking good. I loved Scott and Kip's chemistry. There was a small third breakup, but it resolved pretty quickly, and I did feel the story dragged a little at parts, but overall I really liked this book. Book Kip is not very different, but very, like, in the sex scenes is different than how Show Kip is. Show Kip is different than Book Kip. But I do love both characters all the same. I had so much fun with this book, and I didn't want to put it down. After that, I read Tough Guy, and I rated this one 4 stars. So after being traded to Toronto, Rocky player Ryan Price finds Fabian, the guy he almost kissed during high school, who he might have had feelings for then and now. So this is the third book in the Game Changer series. Ryan and Fabian were really cute together, but not as cute as Scott and Kip. Quick read. I really liked Fabian's confidence in how he dressed and how he acted, and how that who Fabian is who Ryan accepts 100%, and he's attracted to that, and he's 100% with Fabian no matter what. This book is a slow burn of a romance, but worth it to get to the sex scenes. Toys were introduced in the bedroom in this book, which was fun and unexpected. I thought Ryan's anxiety was done well, made you feel for him. There is a third act breakup, and it happens like the last like 25 pages, which kind of pissed me off. And they broke up for like the stupidest reason. Like if they just talked about it, there would have been none. But you know, people can't talk about feelings. There's a solid read that I enjoyed, and there were a few Easter eggs that led to some of the later books in the series. Which, talking about later books in the series, after that I read Common Goal, and I rated this one 4.25 stars. So this one's about hockey goaler Eric Bennett, who gets into a no-strings attached relationship with bartender Kyle, who is 15 years younger than him. Fourth book in the Game Changer series, and I liked it a lot more than the previous book. I really liked Eric and Kyle's relationship as it progresses throughout the story, with Eric's exploration of having sex with another guy. There were good sex scenes, especially with the last big one involving toys. I wish there were more sex scenes, with them being the friends with benefits, rather than just like later when they have like a true relationship. Also, with all of Rachel Reed's books, they have changing character perspective, which usually would irritate me, but it works really well with all these books, so it didn't irritate me at all. I wished Kyle and Eric were better at communicating how they felt, because there wouldn't have been a third act breakup in this, because they break up and then there's a time jump of 2 months later, and then like 5 pages later they get back together, and it's just so stupid. Oh my gosh, it's so stupid. No point. It pissed me off. I did enjoy this book a lot more than I thought I would. Eric had great character vulnerability, as well as discovering and exploring what he wants and needs in a partner. After that, I read Role Model, and I rated this one 4.5 stars. So after being transferred from Toronto to Ottawa's hockey team, Troy Bennett meets his team social media manager, who he might fall for. So, fifth book in the Game Changer series, Troy and Harris were very, very, very cute together. I liked them a lot. Troy had a lot of character progression in the plot and made him a great character to root for. No third act breakup, which I thought there was going to be, and I'm so glad there wasn't. It was a really fun read. Good sex scenes, but I wish there were more, but I'm glad for what we got. Also loved Harris as a character, and I really enjoyed them as a couple and what Troy does at the end of this book. Troy and the conversation that he has with his mom at the end almost made me cry. I don't really cry for books, but it almost made me cry. The next book is the last book in the Game Changer series for now, until the next one comes out next June, is The Long Game, and I rated this one 5 stars. So it follows the characters from Feburary, Shane and Ilya. So 6th book in the Game Changer series, finished in only a few hours, really good. I felt the arcs of Ilya and Shane were really done really well for the progress of the characters, especially Ilya's. Ilya goes through it in this book, my poor little Russian. Good sex scenes with some stuff I wasn't expecting. No third act breakup, but I knew some shit was going to go down with them. When they were happy and they were like 100 pages left, I'm like, shit's gonna hit the fan. There's no way they could be happy for the rest of the book. I like the mentions of other characters from other of the books and how they were worked into the story. I'm excited for when this book gets adapted and what they will change or stay about or keep. I'm just really excited for the series. I am so glad the show got me into these books. I'm not really a hockey person, but there's not a lot of hockey in it. Just a lot of romance, and I really enjoy it, and I can't wait till the 7th one comes out. After that, I read another book by Rachel Reed, and that's Time to Shine, and I rated that one 4.5 stars. So after moving to Calgary to be the backup goalie, Landon needs a place to stay, and hockey player Casey tells him he can stay with him. So this kind of takes place in the same universe as Heated Rivalry, because we get mentions of some of the cities like Montreal and Ottawa, and New York, but we don't meet any of the characters from the Game Changer series. Casey did annoy me a little bit in the beginning with all his talking, but he did grow on me as the book progressed. Good character arcs, and was rooting for them throughout the book. There was the third act breakup, which I hated, but it made sense, and there were good sex scenes between them. Like how Casey decided to take it slow with Landon, figure out what worked with him. And and there were little odds and nodes that remind me of Heated Rivalry. After that, I read Good Spirits, and I rated this one 3.5 stars. So Nolan is a ghost of Xmas past who gets assigned to Harriet to change her ways for Xmas Eve, but they end up changing each other instead. Okay, so I saw some iffy things about this on TikTok, so I was kind of iffy about the book, but it wasn't as bad as I thought. It was a short read. Um, this girl, Harriet, she's obsessed with candy and peppermint. Like, she's gonna have so many freaking cavities by the end of the season. Like, every time she got something to eat, it was peppermint, peppermint, peppermint. I'm like, girl, you're obsessed with peppermint. Chill. Grumpy and sunshine trope. Ending felt kind of lackluster to me, especially when there seemed to be big consequences if Nolan didn't get Harriet to change her ways. And then, like, she changed her ways and nothing really happened. It just felt okay. Plus, I had, like, unanswered questions about this book. Like, Nolan knows about Muppet Christmas Carol, but he doesn't know about Daytona. But he's a ghost from the 1900s, so how does he know that? Is he a ghost at the end, or is he human at the end? It just kind of confused me. Did feel bad about Harriet and her family, liked her growth throughout, and how she finally stood up for herself. This book had cool stained edges as well. After that, I read No One Knew, and I rated that one 4 stars. So when Detective Noel and FBI agent Max's cases have people in common, they realize they've been working on the same case. So this is the second book in the series, but it does a good job of recapping sort of what happened in the first one. I read the first one last year, and this one does kind of a good job of, hey, this is what happened in the last book, but you don't really need to know that to know what's happening in this one. Thought it was a solid read. I really liked Noelle and Max throughout the book, whether they're working on the case or the relationship. I really liked Emma too and how she was connected to all of it. Does change character perspective throughout the book, which usually bothers me, but it really didn't with this one. We got one section with the bad guy's POV. I wish we got more of that, because that's usually what I like about like mystery murder books, is that sometimes we get the murderer, the killer's POV, and we just didn't really get that. And I wish we got more of that, because that was my favorite part. I'm excited to read more of the story when the other books come out, because I really enjoyed this one. The next book after was Fundamentals of Being a Good Girl, and I rated this one 4.25 stars. So after getting spanked and sleeping with someone on her 26th birthday, Maddie realizes it's one of her fellow professors / the man she's nannying for. So I've read from Julie Murphy before, who's one of the authors, and I really liked her writing, so I thought I would give this one a chance, and it was really good. Had the nanny and single dad trope, which I really enjoy. Book was very cute with great sex scenes. There is a third act breakup, which was meh. The book also had footnotes, so like if they would have a little asterisk, and then you would find it, and it just took me out sometimes, because then I would see the footnote and I wouldn't see the asterisk while I'm reading, or the numbers. So then I'm like reading the passage, and then I have to find the numbers again. It was just really irritating. I liked how Maddie didn't take the politician route at the end of the day, but I didn't really care for her career path that she took. I did like how supportive Sarah was for Bram and Maddie's relationship, along with all of Bram's friends. Hope there's more books in the series, because we need some side characters that could lead to other books, so I wish there were more books after this. It had beautiful stained edges. I was skeptical about this book, because I thought it was a student and teacher romance, and I'm very skeptical about those. But it wasn't, and I really enjoyed this one. The next book I read was And They Were Roommates, and I rated this one 3.25 stars. So Charlie makes a deal with Jasper, the man who broke his heart 2 years earlier, pre-transition, to help him write love letters, so Charlie can get a single room rather than living with Jasper. The title was really cute and enticing. The story just ended up disappointing me. I really didn't like Charlie or Jasper that much, especially the latter. He just seemed so full of himself that I couldn't stand him, and then Charlie kind of had like a victim complex, like, oh my gosh, poor me, oh my gosh, poor me, everything's going to shit in my life, just poor me, poor me, poor me, and it just got really so annoying. Plot was okay, and I liked the trans rep. I just thought the book was going to be better. When they got together, it was cute, but I really wasn't rooting for them, which just kind of disappointed me because I was so excited to read this book based off the title and the synopsis. After that, I read Liar's Kingdom, and I rated this one 4 stars. So when Elle tries on the glass slipper, she's whisked away from her family servitude to being a princess, but there's one problem: she wasn't at the ball in the first place. So very solid read that had a lot of odes, references to the OG Cinderella story, whether like the tar on the stairs or what the stepsisters do to fit into the glass slipper, and more that didn't really feel forced. Good plot with one side quest that I didn't really feel was necessary. It's just to find out information, and then that never gets brought up again. So it's like, what's the reason? I liked how graphic the story got at times. Wish the stepmother got a bigger, bloodier end than what she got, especially with how awful she was to Elle and people around her. I just wish her end was more bigger and graphicer and just worse for her than what she got. Also, the relationship between Maximum and Elle, I didn't really believe, and it came out of nowhere for me, especially when it felt like it was trying to be enemies to lovers, and like Maximum had a deal with someone earlier, and then the deal fell through, and then it seemed he was just trying to have Elle as like a backup plan and be like, oh yeah, I always liked you or whatever. It was all part of the plan, but now the plan fell through, so now I'm falling for you, and it's like, no. Just no. After that, I read the Dark Cove Theater Society, and I also rated this one 4 stars. So after having a panic attack last semester, Violet gets another chance at Dark Cove Arts Academy. When she gets a leading role in a Halloween play, she finds out she might be her school's next cursed victim. So a short and fast read. Love the colors of the cover. They really worked really well together. Really enjoyed the story, and I liked where it was going throughout. Book had footnotes, which were easier to find and more understandable than the book I talked about earlier. Book also had report cards, letters, mail, etc. as storytelling devices, which I really love when books do that. The ending felt rushed to me, and I felt like there were no consequences for our villains. The one person just kind of like, oh, they left school and they're on a boat and they haven't been seen. Other ones like, oh, we're gonna talk to them afterwards. It's just like, oh, you're just having a stern talking to. They're not gonna have big repercussions for their actions. It just felt anticlimactic, and I wish we got more consequences for those involved. After that, I read Wreck Your Heart, and I rated this one 3.5 stars. When Dahlia's estranged mother shows up back in her life after 20 years, she finds out that the pub she calls home might contain patrons with secrets. So it was an okay read. I like Dahlia, but I felt the story was very happy. We would have one section to another section to another section, which just felt like all over the place. Like it's a mystery novel, but I felt at times there were scenes with no purpose, like probably to be red herrings, but just didn't do anything for me. I like that it took place in Chicago. The ending felt rushed a lot, especially when the big reveals came. I just didn't care, along with where the rent money was all along was also very stupid. A lot of things were just kind of predictable with this book. And with Dahlia being a country singer, that you would think there'd be a lot more scenes with her singing, and there's not, just few and in between, and her talking about being a country singer, not really her being a country singer. I'm just disappointed. Wish this book could have been better. After that, I read Don't Let the Forest In, and I rated this one 4.75 stars. So after returning to school, Andrew finds out his friend Thomas is a suspect in his parents' murder and is secretly fighting monsters in the school's forest based off Thomas's drawings and Andrew's stories. So I really like this book. I really enjoy the relationship between Andrew and Thomas and how it develops. I liked how Thomas, in the beginning, is usually the comforter, and Andrew's the anxious one, but as the story progresses, they switch roles, especially when the monsters come out. I couldn't stop reading it. Usually plant-based stories that have to do with nature and nature coming out to destroy or mess with our main protagonist, they kind of rank kind of low for me, like in the threes or something. This one was done so well, which is why I rated it so high. It was just so good, especially with all the details, with the monsters and the setting. I just felt like you were there in the school, in the forest. You were just inserted into the story itself. And I was so invested, especially when it came to Andrew and what happens to him. The book also had illustrations of the monsters, so you knew what they looked like when they were chasing the boys or they were fighting them. And some of Andrew's stories were written on black pages throughout the book with white font, which sometimes were hard to read with the white font, but it did fall in line to what the story was trying to progress and what was happening in the story overall. After that, I read Dear Debbie, and I rated this one 4 stars. When Debbie's life starts to unravel for her and her family, Debbie starts to go after those who deserve it. So I finished it in only a few hours, which again I do with Freedom McFadden books. Beginning started off like some of her other books with like, oh, they're a family person, you know, with their kids, their husband. I'm like, okay, this is going to start off like some of her other ones. But then it got better, especially with the 3 different POVs in the book when there's usually 1 or 2, which is a big surprise for me. It was a good change of pace for the book and made sense. I liked how the reader knew Debbie was a little off before, like just a few pages in, because usually we realize that the big twist at the end. This one we sort of know off the bat in the first couple pages, oh, she's a little off, which made her a more interesting character, easier to sympathize, and root for. I wish we got more of Debbie's letters that she writes out to the public rather than like her draft letters, which is how we see more of her dealing with her trauma and like the graphic details. So I wish we got more of the ones she sent out rather than the ones we get as drafts. Great twist, but I wasn't expecting, and it made it a great reveal. The second to last book I read was Dream On, Ramona Riley, and I rated this one 4.5 stars. So 18 years ago, Dylan and Ramona shared their first kiss with each other. Now Dylan is back in town filming a movie and doesn't remember Ramona is the girl she kissed, while Ramona does. So very cute and sweet. I liked it a lot more than I thought I would. First in the series, and the second one is the book I read after this one. I really like the moment Dylan remembers who Ramona is and what that leads to, because they're also at the bowling alley and Dylan is bowling. And Dylan has never bowled before, and she leaves a 7-10. And then later, she gets the spare, and I'm like, that's complete utter bullshit. There's no way someone who's never bowled before ends up getting a 7-10 split, which is the hardest spare to get in bowling. So I'm just like, it's complete bullshit. Their night breakup happens, which I knew was going to happen, but still, great sex scenes, some of them including toys, which I wasn't expecting, but I enjoyed seeing them. I also like seeing the film aspect of the book and the behind the scenes when they're working on the film set, featuring both Ramona and Riley, both this one and Get Over It April Evans, which I will get to in a minute, to make like little nods and odes to like the enemies to lovers or the third act breakup or whatever. So like those little odes throughout the book. So then those happen. I'm like, haha, that's funny. And so talking about Get Over It, April Evans, that is the last book I read in February, and I read that one 4 stars. So after her life goes to shit, April Evans works as an art instructor at a summit resort, but finds out her co-instructor is the woman her ex-fiance cheated on her with 3 years prior. So this is a sequel to Dream On, Ramona Riley. And I really didn't like this book as much as the first one. Usually I don't really like the first one, that one, and the second one's really good. This one I like the first one better than the second one. Really cute and sweet. Early enemies to lovers, but it leads more to friends to lovers as book progresses. I like the competition aspect between Daphne and April, even after they find out who the other is, because they both have a chance of being put in a art museum, so they both have to create art pieces throughout it. So a little competition between them. Most of the times, April and Daphne blended together, except the reading part, and then it would skip to somebody else. And I'm like, wait, who are we supposed to be talking about again? Um, there, there's like a semi third eye breakup in this book, but it lends more to this is a goodbye for now. It's not really them breaking up because they both really love each other. It's more of this is goodbye for now because Daphne needs to find herself with all her religious trauma, her trauma with Elena, and her new relationship with April. She's like, I love you, but I need to find who I am first before we continue. So it's not really a breakup, but it's more of this is a goodbye for now, which I really appreciated. Wish there were more sex scenes since there were not a lot, and this book could have done a lot more character development, or felt like some things could have been resolved more, because we would get like, oh, this has happened to me, this has happened to me, this is my trauma, this is my trauma, this is this, and it doesn't really get resolved, so it just is left there, so it just doesn't feel conclusive. I also really wished we got more of April being a tattoo artist, because that's one of the things that drew me in while reading the synopsis, is that she's a tattoo artist. And we only get like a couple scenes of her tattooing, and I wish we got more of that, because I really liked having that aspect of April's character. So yeah, those are all the 19 books I read in February. If you have any recommendations for me in March, let me know down below. Otherwise, I'll see you next month. Bye.